Yo, call me Sonic X Shadow, but yo, this game don't got Sonato. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the Game Sketch. Today and only today, that's right, I am here to tell you that I have played Sonic X Shadow Generations. I've had the game for a hot minute, and of course, do not worry to my people that are like, Fidel, you betrayed us. You were gonna live react to everything. Yes, I am going to, because for each of these games, I've only played the first part, the first section. You know how like Sonic Generation starts, you have the first 3 levels and the boss. Same thing with Shadow, where you have the first 2 levels actually, and the boss. And that's what I did for both of these games. That way I could get a bit of at least a taste, give you guys a preview video, you know what to expect, and then a full mega review of course will come the next coming days after I have beaten these games on stream, which you can watch on twitch.tv/gamescage. But of course I know what you're all here for, so make sure to subscribe and let's get right into the preview of Sonic X Shadow Generations. I think we're gonna start with the Shadow side of the game. Of course, thank you SEGA for providing a copy and everything, but yeah, let's start with Shadow Generations. Fidel, what are your thoughts on Shadow Generations so far? Well, I love it, man. I gotta say, right off the dome, right off the bat, if I'm just talking to talk here, I gotta say this is probably the most polished Sonic experience we've had in forever. Like, this game has zero of the frontiers sort of jank where you can mess with the game in different ways. Like, I think this is genuinely like extremely polished, like down to how it looks, down to how Shadow plays. There's no weird gimmicks. There's no, you know, what's that homing shot move that you do in frontiers where you can push yourself in the air? Like, there's no weird gimmicks as far as we know. Obviously people are gonna, you know, break the game, figure out the game when it's out, but for the most part, just like right off the bat, that's my first thought when I think of the game. Like, damn, this is polished as hell. Level design is fire. You know, it looks good. It plays super well. And we got to get into so much of it. I do want to start. How do I want to start this? Let's start with like the tone and the story, right? Because it's so funny when you think about how Sonic Generations is so much more lighter. You know, it's like, oh, Time Eater takes over. Let's go to our past. And then Shadow, right away, the game starts, you know, and you are thrown into, not misery, but you're thrown into, you know, that moment we've seen in the trailer where Gerald and Maria open Shadow, and then boom, right, it flashes to him on the arc, and you're gonna see that it actually takes place parallel to Sonic Generation. Now, I don't want to tell you all the story stuff, but it does start with a really cool tone, and as you keep going, you can see, man, not only production value in terms of the voice acting, but just in terms of how they direct cutscenes. Like, there's the moment where Shadow meets Black Doom, and Black Doom is explaining his plan, and Shadow's kicking his ass again. This is stuff that you've mainly seen in the trailer, but seeing it in-game really hits different, including, you know, those cutscenes where you get the Doom powers. They just look so good. I just like, I cannot help but play this and be like, damn, bro, like they really stepped it up, and Kirk Thorne's performance as Shadow shines so much more here. He's doing an incredible job. But of course, at the end of the day, this is a Sonic game, or in this case, a Shadow game, and the most important thing boils down to, well, how does it play, Fidel? I'm happy to report that it plays super well. I've played the game at preview events, so we're gonna talk about the white space open zone in a second, but I want to talk about just generally, how does Shadow feel to control? And I gotta say, at first I was a bit weirded out because Shadow controls a little bit like he's heavy. You know, I don't know how to explain it. Like, he's got some solid movement, right, and he feels good, but his initial movement when you're not boosting isn't necessarily that fast. It's a bit more faster than like base Frontiers when you're just walking without boosting. But Shadow, when you're just moving around, is pretty slow, but there's a satisfaction, you know, to doing your little roller skate shimmy. But for the most part, the way I describe this game is like, think of Sonic Adventure and Sonic Frontiers mixed together gameplay wise, where you have definitely more agency of Shadow. The levels obviously want you to boost through, but there's a lot of moments where they want you to do some meticulous platforming, or that you have the option to. And what's cool about Shadow is obviously, you know, Doom Power side, it gives you options with the character, right? Base version of Shadow has the Chaos Control as well as Chaos Spears, right? So you can toss Chaos Spears at some enemies, lock onto them, hit them. But of course, one of the big hooks of the game is Chaos Control. And the thing about Chaos Control is not only can you stop time to maybe reach certain different areas in a level, right? For example, on the arc here that you're seeing, But one of the big things about it as well is that you can actually slow down the timer. The timer just stops fully when you're doing it. So for people that want to optimize speed run times and everything, it's actually going to be a really helpful tool to just slow down time, see how many gimmicks and things you can break through, and then continue the level. And speaking of levels, I got to play about 2 levels and a boss fight, because I guess maybe now, I don't know how far the game is going to go, right? But you know, Sonic Gen is 3 levels and a boss. Here it's actually 2 levels and then a boss. So I'm wondering if it's probably going to be 6 acts total and a boss fight, unless there's, you know, more, 8 acts total, and they're gonna surprise me. I would be shocked, but I would be more than happy with that. But yeah, so I played Space Colony Arc, and I got to play Rail Canyon, because Rail Canyon is actually the 2nd level, which makes me wonder what's going on with Radical Highway, because it's clearly following like the chronological order of the games, like having Space Colony Arc and then Rail Canyon from Heroes, but having it be that, you know, Radical Highway shows up later is a bit weird. So I'm wondering how they're gonna fit that in. But I got to play these 2 levels, and man, Act 1 of Space Colony Arc, we've all sort of seen, and it's probably the least changed level of them all. Like I said, the game is a bit more polished now. You know, I've gotten to optimize my runs a little bit. It's fun seeing all the different paths that Space Colony Arc has to offer. But I guess I'm gonna use this time to highlight and discuss something that Sonic Team hasn't really shown, and that is the Act 2, right? So each act of the game, as far as I know, is 2D level, right? And for Space Colony Arc, you're seeing here fully 2D level. It's really fun. Like, I was surprised because you know how it is, right? You get to a 2D level, you're like, all right, here we go, we're doing this. But I think they cooked for the most part. I think the 2D levels are very fun. They are obviously not the star of the show, like, you know, as always, but I noticed that they're a little bit more zoomed in. Like, I feel like Shadows, you know, 2D levels are a bit more zoomed in, and it's a little bit more controlled which areas you can go to. But I do appreciate about these levels is that they have some depth to them. So for example, in the Space Colony Arc level Shadow, you're using Chaos Spears to shoot these buttons to open different doors, and it'll be cool sometimes if you're dropping to a platform, you can take a top path or a bottom path to open a different button and end up in a different place than you could have before. Or even again, you can use Chaos Control to be able to, you know, stop the bullets, to be able to jump on a higher path. So there's already some cool alternate pathways that you're taking early on, even in a 2D level. In fact, for some reason, so this happens in the first time you do the Space Colony Arc Act 2, and it doesn't happen again because I don't have the Doom Wings yet, but you get a preview of the Doom Wings, and basically how they work is when you have them, you can, you know, zoom past enemies, and it is really fucking cool. Like, it is super dope. I guess it's just a taste of what it's like to have them, but you don't really get to keep them. I guess maybe they're probably going to bring them back later in the game, but for the most part, Wings felt super cool. They looked super cool, and I will say 2D level was super fun for Space Colony Arc. And just like Sonic Generations, you know, once you beat the level, you have your character that's standing there that you freed. And for Space Colony Arc, it's Omega. Omega's just got some funny lines. They don't really have like a full crazy intro like they do for Sonic Gens. Not that the intros for characters are crazy in Sonic Gens, but you know what I mean. And the big one was that I got to play Rail Canyon, because Rail Canyon is the 2nd level. And man, what a fun time, bro. Like, they brought back that gimmick where, you know, you hit the signs and it changes which path you could take. They brought back the trains, and again, a lot of branching paths, which is so cool. Depending on which button you hit, you might end up on a different path. There's top paths, there's bottom paths, right? The collectibles you try to find encourage you to get the different paths. You can boost off a rail to get on top of a platform or on the bottom side of it. Like, you can see where the clicks are, and I think there's even parts of the levels I haven't even seen, because I noticed when I was playing that I could see like a platform in the distance that I couldn't get to, and I think sometimes that's optimizing when to use Chaos Control, right? Because that is going to be an important aspect of your gameplay. Is when are you going to get Chaos Control? When are you going to use Chaos Control, right? Are you going to use it to optimize time, or are you going to use it on a moment where you might need to multipath or platform? And I think that's added a lot of incentive for me to go back into levels. But and again, what's cool about this level, just like Space Colony Arc, each main act I think is going to have Black Doom messing with the environment, because you get the moment where you're playing it where one of my favorite animations in the game happens, where, you know, Black Doom is doing his thing, and then you see like the grind rails are squiggling and Shadow sort of shimmies and jumps through them. Like, I adore the level production that's going on here. I love these cinematics mid-level. They just add so much more to the game, right? And I can't wait to see Sonic eventually get this kind of thing, because there's definitely dynamic moments in Sonic levels. Like I think of even, you know, Sonic Generations, when Sonic goes down, you know, the building with the cops chasing him. But it's not the same as like a mid-level cutscene like this, you know, where the character gets to do some dynamic shit and it smoothly goes into the next area. And it's so cool. And you can tell they try to mess with you with the type of platforming there is. You know, you can dash through. There's moments where you're diving downwards in that part, and then it switches to you diving like upwards. It's so cool, the type of shit that Black Doom is on. Really weird and wild, which I find so intriguing. But I will say overall, Rail Canyon as a level is super fun, and the Act 2 is pretty good as well. Again, it's another 2D level. You're going to be able to press the buttons to swap the different grind rails. It's really fun, and again, you're going to use Chaos Control to your advantage a lot of times in these levels. Again, they're never the craziest thing. They're not the level you're going to go back to, but I did find myself going back to the 2D levels a bit more than I wanted to. And I don't think they're as massive as a typical 2D level, but there is still the multi-branch pathing of, you know, a classic level where, you know, you want to take a higher path or a different path. There's options, and that's what I like about Sonic games, is when you have options, you can see those options of where you want to go. I really also loved in Rail Canyon that, you know, the bullet trains, how they chase you, how you can take different paths on the grind rails. I mean, look, grind rails are cool. We all know that. So having a full level centered around them was really dope, and it was nice to play through a Sonic Heroes level without wanting to end my life. I will say, unfortunate aspect about the game, the ranking system. As usual, the ranking system is just a little too easy for my taste. I wish it was like Sonic Unleashed, where, you know, maybe the more Doom powers you got, the more easy it would be to get an S rank, because for now, I can breezily get an S rank. Maybe that's just me because I'm, you know, decent at these games. But yeah, S ranking was not hard to get. I wish they made this a little more difficult, you know, but Shadow's animations when he gets an S rank are really cool. So I'm not even complaining about my boy looking fire. And yeah, let's talk about Doom powers, because I have not gotten them all, but I did get, I think, 3 of them. I got the Doom Surf, I got the Doom Spears, and I got the Doom, what's it called? The Doom Push or whatever, the Doom Kick. And the Doom Kick is really cool because basically what happens is certain enemies, you can like mash square and then hold it to launch them in the air and then go to a different area, which leads to some really cool stuff in the open zone. That's right, this game has been hiding this aspect about the game, the open zone, the white space, and I'm here to tell you, it's fucking cool. It's really cool. So the way this works is, it is for now not quite as intricate or crazy as a open zone area. In fact, I think it's a bit better, because the way it works in Shadow Gens is more of the environment is unlocking and more things to do are unlocking as you are playing through the game, right? So it kind of follows the philosophy of original Sonic Generations, which I really like about Shadow Gens, is it feels like it's still naturally part of the generation style of gameplay. But what's really cool about Shadow Gens is open zone is there is so much stuff to do. There's fun platforming, and it's not platforming just to platform. You can find collectibles in the environment where you can find artwork and other pieces. You can find music, which you can use. Yes, that's right, you can change the music in different acts like you could in original Sonic Generations, which is really cool. There's some music from Frontiers in there. There's some cool vocal themes from across the years. Like, it's really cool that they brought that back. But for the most part, you can see it from the open zone. Really fun, and I can tell the more Doom powers you get, the more fun it will be to roam around. And there was those times where, you know, I wanted to sort of shimmy my way through an area, try to do like a double jump into a boost forward, push myself through a rail. You know, there were moments where I was trying to shimmy through it, but I will say again, the game is really polished and sort of wants you to learn its intricacies with Shadow, but it's not, you're not breaking the game in the same way with Sonic. There's no, you know, homing attack, what's it called? Not homing attack. There's no spin dash that goes all the way up and breaks the environment for you. You know, you can't do the homing shot. There isn't like weird stuff where you can mess with the game as at least explicit as for Sonic Frontiers. With it, it's a bit more calculated. And what's so cool about the open white space zone or whatever is there are challenges you can do within the open zone space. There's platforming you can do, and yes, just like Sonic Generations, there are the challenge levels. In fact, you have to do the challenge levels to get the boss keys, just like in Sonic Generations, which let's fucking go. And I love love so far Shadow Generations is bonus things. There's a lot of unique ones. So for example, there is one where, yes, they brought it back. You have to, you know, destroy all the fake chaoses, which is really cool, or whatever they call the robo chaoses, which is a nice throwback to people's trauma from back in the day. You have something like that. Not only that, but you have, you know, ring challenges where you got to go through as many rings as possible. You'll have enemy challenges, you'll have timers, like time trials. Like, there is a lot of cool different challenges, and what's cool about them is, just like original gens, they each have rankings too. And what's even better about these ones than base gens is they each also have 3 collectibles. You're going to be getting different collectibles in the game, but the main 3 are music, Gerald's, you know, journal entry, or artwork. I think for the most part, you're going to be getting artwork and music from the collectibles, but it is so damn cool that each challenge levels has 3 collectibles, because it already has an incentive to S rank, then it now has an incentive to get collectibles, and obviously you have the incentive to beat them and get that little bell where you chase it to get something where you'll get again some kind of unlockable. So it is so dense in a sense. I understand what they meant by Shadow Gens being potentially the length of Sonic Gens, because there's a lot to do within the challenge levels alone, let alone the open zone environment, which is so fun. Like I said, especially when you get Doom Surf. I feel like Doom Surf is when you really feel it open up. You're walking through the water, there's different paths you can take, there's so many different branches of areas you can go through in the open white space. And I think what I love about the white space so far is, like I said, the platforming feels more controlled. You know, it feels like, yes, maybe you have less mobility to do crazy stuff, but you have more mobility to sort of maneuver through the platforming challenges they want you to do. And again, I can tell the more Doom powers you're gonna get, the difference is you're gonna get in these, you know, types of platforming challenges you're gonna do. Like, I feel like you're gonna be able to go do different stuff, and you're gonna be able to do stuff a little bit differently. So I do think for the most part, the open zone white space is such a cool concept. And I think it's like, I wouldn't say it's an evolution of the open zone. I think it's it's showing that Sonic Team is understanding platforming challenges a bit more than they did in Frontiers, where sometimes it felt like, here's just things to have things, you know, whereas here everything feels a bit more quality controlled. And that's my biggest thing and takeaway that I've talked about, is there's so much more quality control. One of my favorite challenges was actually one that used the Doom Spears ability, and the way this challenge worked is you had to break as many of these balloons as possible, but it was actually difficult to S rank because you're trying to time, you know, tapping these balloons while trying to speed up. You want to slow down time so you can hit more of them. There's different spots you can take to hit different balloons. If you do chaos control on a bottom platform, you're able to open a gate, like, you know, have a gate that stays close so you can hit the buttons under it. Like, I felt like it was a decent challenge to go through, and so far, like, I've been enjoying these challenges so much. You know, they make me happy. There's stuff to do, and I believe the way it works is there's like a few 2D ones, a few 3D ones for each level and act. And I did get to do one boss fight, and that is the Bio Lizard fight. He's sort of the final boss of the first section of the game, and I like the Bio Lizard fight. It's the same thing when I played at Summer Games. Just really cool. I do like that so far the bosses are a bit more controlled in what you do. They're not necessarily as I don't think they hit the insane high highs of a Sonic Frontiers fight, but I feel like they're definitely more of a boss fight than the Frontiers ones. Because look, at the end of the day, the Frontiers ones, unless you're really ass, like, you're auto winning those fights. You know, you're parrying, you're hitting. It's mainly about flashiness over substance. Whereas with Shadow Gens, it's a bit of the opposite, right? Where they wanted to be like, okay, let's have a, you know, controlled boss with some cinematic moments in there that you can see. But for the most part, we want you to be able to really try to do well in this boss fight. And like I said, I had a great time with the Bio Lizard, some cool dynamic cinematic stuff. And even when you beat it, God, dude, you get a teaser of that thing we saw in the trailer where you see a bit of Maria and Gerald. Again, Shadow having a dynamic with Black Doom again, being like, why are you back? Black Doom saying he's about to bring down the Promised Land, like the Promised Land. There's some crazy stuff going on here that I don't want to spoil too much. And in fact, I cannot wait myself to continue through and get through the different acts. Also, I gotta say, right, so one of the things about this game is you have a collectible room, and the collectible room is really fucking cool because you have artwork that I've never seen before for Shadow. Like, I think they are really digging into their archives for exclusive Shadow art I've never seen in my life, right? There's stuff from Sonic X, there's stuff from original Shadow designs, there's even stuff where you can, you see the story so far. Like, there's a lot of cool references and things that they do here. Not only that, but you have Gerald's Robotnik's journal, which I only got the first page. I only read through the first page, and oh my god, I can tell, the lore fans and people that want to see more of Shadow's life or Gerald's life are gonna be really, really happy with this one. But yeah, overall for Shadow Generations, again, so far I'm basically what you would call, I think by the time I was done with the first area and 100%ing stuff around there, the game said I had about like 27% to 30% done. So I can tell that it's not gonna be like a crazy length, but it's probably gonna be a decent length. And like I said, the more open zone challenges are unlocked, the more level challenges, the more zones themselves are fun to replay. Going back to them with Doom powers is going to be fun. Like, I am just so happy with Shadow Generations, and I really feel like this is what I want from the next Sonic game. Like, I want Sonic's levels to have dynamic cinematic moments. I want them to feel crazy. Imagine like brand new levels, right, with this style of gameplay, with a more intricate, well-designed open zone. Like, I feel like also this open zone, what's cool about it is it feels like a Sonic level. It's not like the Frontiers where, it's like grassland. It's like the white space feels creepy. The music feels creepy. There's a sense of discovery too, because there are things you just cannot do in the open zone until you unlock something, which wasn't really the case of Sonic Frontiers. I mean, you could basically do everything in an open zone in Sonic Frontiers with your base movement. So it's cool to see that Shadow Gens is evolving the formula of open zone and doing things like that where it's, oh shit, I can't do this yet. I need to unlock this or that. And so I'm just so happy, and I cannot wait to continue through the game and see more of it. I'm so excited, you have no idea, and I'm just so happy with where we're at, because Shadow Gens to me is the proof of where we're at so far. It's Sonic Team flexing, right? They're understanding how to do level design with multi-branching paths. They're understanding replay value with the Doom powers being able to go back with different abilities, right? They're understanding open zone more. They're understanding dynamic camera, story more. Like, I am so happy so far with Shadow Generations, and I cannot wait to keep going through it. But hey, we cannot forget that this game also has another game in here, and that is Sonic Generations, right? The classic, the game people have always grown up to love. And Sonic Generations, I'm happy to report, is mainly Sonic Generations, but there are two major changes to the game, right? And we're going to talk about them right here. So first of all, rewritten. That has been the thing that has been circulating, the thing that's been rumored, the thing I've been assuming, and it is finally real. Yes, Sonic Generations is rewritten. Now, I will say, so far, the changes, I did try to compare them. They are basically not that the story changes, but they're changing the dialogue to fit the characters a bit more in tone. So for example here, let me show you one over here, right? So for example, in the original opening of the game, Sonic blocks Amy's face right here, but now he doesn't do that, right? Or some moments where they're talking about, the level they're about to enter. In the original game, it's a bit more like, this environment is something we visit from our past and all this, and it kind of looks like the chemical plant. Like, whereas here they sort of shorten the dialogue and they change it a bit, where they're just like, yeah, oh yeah, that's the chemical plant, or I gotta get there right away. But instead of like the original where it's just like, I'll be there in a jiffy, like they changed the writing a bit to sort of fit the modern style. It's weird. I've never seen anything like this, where it's not that the story is different, it's just that they've updated the dialogue to fit the characters more. And I kind of like it. Like I said, I'll show you like 2 or 3 of them side by side really quickly here.
I can't believe there's 2 of me.
Couldn't have done it better myself.
How did this happen?
Without the time stones?
This chemical plant feels familiar. I'd never forget a smell like this. This is definitely the chemical plant, but we're not remotely on West Side Island. Did that monster do this?
You saved me, Sonic. I was afraid I'd never be able to flirt with you again. You saved me, Sonic. I'll be sure to return the favor next time around.
And I can tell what they were going for here, and I like it. I think these are better changes overall, because again, the original script for Sonic Gens is cringy. Like, just the characters are just talking weird, and obviously regardless, it is still at base value the same story. But I do like the changes that they've made to the story. I know some people are purists and they like to have the original, but dude, the original was not great. So to have some updated dialogue, you know, having it done a bit better, I like it. But of course, a game is a game at the end of the day, and the most important thing is, how is Generations? Well, gameplay wise, it's pretty much the same. It's nice to have on PS5. I was playing on PS5, by the way, and have the game just running smoothly, looking incredibly sharp. Like, I just love having the game available to me. And for the most part, now, I know a lot of people get worried, you know, because of how Sonic goes. For the most part, I think the physics and movement and gameplay feel the same. I did notice there was some stuff like some pop-in, or there were some moments where like I did, you know, some moves and sometimes I would fall weirdly, but I couldn't tell if that's me being ass or that's something with the game's physics. Like, I think of this one moment in Sky Sanctuary where I was trying to jump on the second zip line and it was like almost impossible to do. I don't know, unless I had to like jump way higher. Like, I felt like there was some things in there, like the pop-in, you could see it for a little bit in some areas, but for the most part, as someone, look, I always say this, right? I'm the core demographic for this, right? And I think for the most part, I'm barely noticing anything, and for the most part, it looks good. It runs extremely well. It's super cool. Now, the one weird thing is that with Classic Sonic, you have the drop dash, which I think is awesome. I think it makes these levels way more fun. I've always loved the drop dash. I love using it. But what's weird about Classic Sonic is when you do the challenge levels, you don't have access to the drop dash anymore. And so you're left in this weird spot where you're like, well, I've wired my brain now to use the drop dash, and you're taking this away from me now, which is weird because modern Sonic has the drop dash and he keeps it in the challenge levels, but also like, I don't want to use the drop dash with modern Sonic. I tried using it. I tried to see if it was optimal. Anyway, there's no world where I really want to use the drop dash and not just boost. You constantly have boosts available to you in Sonic Gen. So I don't know. Like, I'm not mad at it. It's one of those things where like it's an inoffensive addition to have the drop dash on modern Sonic, but it's like not something that I really care for. There's probably going to be a use case or two where it might be useful and help you get through something, but for the most part, you're just boosting most of the time. And like I said, the biggest aspect of Sonic Gens that's different is just that it's rewritten, but for the most part, the game is just as gorgeous, the game is just as fun, the game is just as content packed, and I just had a great time with it, right? The cutscenes, I still wish they had like updated the cutscenes to look, you know, way more fancy and you know, graphically over the top, but for the most part, like, you can tell that they have these subtitles over the game, you know, these gray box subtitles, because the lipstick I don't think necessarily matches the game the same way. And the second big aspect is each level now has a new collectible, and that is in the form of chows. So each of the levels have 3 different little chows you can find in the environment, whether it's Act 1 or Act 2. And so far, to be honest, unless it's an end game reward for getting all the chow, they don't really do anything. It's just an incentive, I guess, to find an extra collectible in the level. They look cool. They sort of like show them the chow flying in front of the level that you beat, which is kind of cute. And I'm wondering if maybe if you get all of them, that you'll be able to just have one follow you through a level. But yeah, for the most part, it's cute collecting chow. It's just a fun way to sort of, you know, go really sit through the level, which I think is fun. I think adding a reason to go back to levels is always something you need in Sonic games. And I think going through a level meticulously to try to find the chow is pretty good. And I think what's really cool is they're usually hidden in a very small spot. You know, you're really gonna have to look and go through and through again and again to try to find where the chow are, because sometimes they'll be hidden in a box, sometimes they'll be on the bottom pad. Like, they're gonna be in really weird places, and you're gonna have to put some effort to find them all. Also, there are the extra costumes in general for each of the game, the Terios, the classic Sonic skins. I don't have access to the classic Sonic skins yet, but I did have access to Terios, and Terios looks cool for the most part. He is, you know, Terios gaming, he's running around doing his thing. He looks hella cool. I would rock the skin actually for a different playthrough. But what's weird is that he doesn't have rocket boost, but he slides around like Shadow, which it would have been cooler if he run around like Sonic. But for the most part, cool with that stuff. And that is it for Sonic Shadow Generations early preview, man. For the most part, this package I think is pretty amazing. I mean, $50 and you are getting what is arguably the best 3D Sonic game for some people with Sonic Generations. And now you are getting Shadow Generations, which again, unless a generational fumble sometimes happen or the game breaks, you know, somehow later on, which I don't think is going to happen, I am incredibly happy with it. I think the action is cool, story moments are cool, bosses are cool, open zone. I think Sonic Generations is still as fun as it used to be, and I think for $50, what you're getting in terms of music unlocks, gameplay availability, I think across both games, you're probably looking, if you 100%ed both games, probably maybe like 15-20 hours worth of content for this, so really fucking good. And obviously these games are all about replay value and online leaderboards too if you want to beat people's times. I'm happy, man, and I hope you guys are happy too. And guys, thank you all for watching. Make sure to stay tuned to twitch.tv/gamesketch to watch my full playthrough. Full playthroughs of both games are going to be available on the channel as soon as it's done, so if you want to see my live reactions to that, you will be able to. So guys, thank you all for watching. You're the best, and of course I will see you all next time. Peace out.